Welcome back to the GameLink podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Lebbi, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Elmer.
How's it going, folks?
And we'll let our guest introduce himself today. We got a guest.
Hey, I'm really excited to be the first ever guest on the gamelink podcast. My name is Thor, and I know a lot less about video games than these two, but I do know about movies.
Yeah, that's all right. You are going to be great to have on because you know so much about movies. And Thor has his own podcast. We've been guests on it a couple times, and that's Thor's Hour of Thunder. So you can you can find where can they find you?
Any of the podcast services, Apple, Google, that sort of thing.
All right, cool.
I once on a lark just decided, let's see if I can find all my favorite podcasts on, like the most random of the different like RSS feed software apps you can get on your phone. Found one called Podbean, another one that was called like something / had like 2 X's and something and a hamster in the title, and I still found just about everybody that you could want. So yeah, between Thor's, ours, and the Bloody Good Horror guys, yeah, you can find just about anybody anywhere. So
yeah,
there we go.
So today we are going to be talking about another movie that came before a video game, and they're not even directly related. We're going to be talking about Half-Life and a movie from 1990 called Kamillions. And we'll kind of explain the relevance as we go, but this is going to be a good episode, I think. So before we jump into that, who wants to go first, Thor or Elmer? What were you guys up to this last week?
Let's have Elmer go so I can I've listened to your guys' show, but just to make sure I understand the format of what.
Oh, sure.
So I don't just start being like, oh man, the photocopier broke.
I mean, if that's what you want to talk about, what'd you do this week, Elmer?
A little bit of everything, to tell you the truth. Ended up having to change my oil on my car for the first time in probably close to a year with how little I drive, with literally walking 2 blocks to work every week. On top of that, finally changed my furnace filter. And, I surprised the heck out of Archangel when I came riding home on a bright red and silver beach cruiser on Wednesday going, guess what, I'm turning to the Pee-wee Mobile! And flying by, but, nothing too crazy beyond that really happened this week. So.
Did you watch anything good?
Nothing new, to be honest with you. At least I don't think so. Nothing that really, got me excited. I guess I should say I've caught a couple minutes of House of the Dragon this week, but having like little to no context with Game of Thrones in general, I'm just sitting there going, oh look, hi Patty Constantine, hi Doctor Who, this is weird, but no, nothing too much. How about yourself?
Well, I let's see, I watched, what was the movie called? What did we watch? We watched Sinister. That horror movie Sinister, and it was my second time seeing it, I think, and it was okay. I think it was definitely better the first time. Maybe that's not a multiple watch movie, but also some hot gaming news. Perfect Dark is coming to the PC.
Yes.
Making a remaster of Perfect Dark. So I'm kind of getting pumped about that. And the new Sonic game is coming out in like early November, like November 8th. So I have it pre-ordered, and I'm trying not to get my hopes up about it because it is a Sonic game. But otherwise it was a pretty easygoing week. I had fun. Did you do or see anything interesting, Thor?
Yeah. Went in terms of went apple picking, which isn't really my bag, but then the apple orchard had a outdoor bar with like a million different kinds of cider.
That sounds
that they
awesome.
all of which they'd made. They had just like a regular apple cider, and they had one with blueberries. They had one with like blueberries and lemonade. It was a pretty sweet deal. So next year I'm gonna try and convince my wife that we just skip the picking and just drive out there and like drink and then sober up in our car.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Oh man.
Or I guess maybe we could get drunk first and then pick the apples. That might work too.
Either way, there's cider involved.
Exactly, yeah. And then in terms of watching, I'm slowly making my way through Beyond the Black Rainbow for my podcast. I've seen it before, and it's good. It's from the guy who did Mandy, but it's
Ooh.
so slow. Like it's meant to be like a sort of like fever dream of a film. Like it's not
Oh, of
meant to
course,
be.
because that's
Yeah,
all Mandy was.
yeah.
Wait, you finally
And
saw Mandy?
I think I fell asleep halfway through,
Oh.
but I tend to do that during movies.
that's funny.
I've never wearing my Cheddar Goblin over here. Your Cheddar Goblin T-shirt over here again. Damn it.
Oh, that's funny. I actually still need to see Mandy. I haven't, so
Oh.
look forward to that maybe next Halloween.
Ooh, yeah.
But I also watched just because I was having trouble sleeping, so I was like, let me find something mindless I can watch. And the Peter Weller movie Leviathan is on Tubi now.
Oh, that's a good one.
And then for some reason, the Italian version is on Pluto TV.
Okay.
Do you mean the Italian-made version of Leviathan or the Italian cut of Leviathan?
No, just like the exact same cut, but dubbed in Italian.
Oh,
I think someone made a mistake and sent the wrong cut because it's from an Italian company. It's from the De Laurentises.
That's
So
hilarious.
I think someone sent the wrong cut to Pluto, and I'm probably the first person to try watching it on Pluto, so I'm the first person to notice.
Oh, great.
I thought you meant that it was like competing like underwater horror movies from that era. You know, on the one hand you got Leviathan made by a Greek guy, and then on the other end you've got like I can't remember which one it was. The one with Arlie Ermy in it, where it's like
Deep
the
Star
undersea.
was that Deep Star 6?
No, that's the one from Sean S. Cunningham, the guy who did Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Because then there's the one that
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of that. There was The Abyss, which they were all trying to rip off, and then there's the third one that I'm blanking on. Oh well, not going to come to me. But I should say you're right. This was produced by Italians, but then the director was what's his name? I think I'm actually
George P. Cosmatos, who is the father of Panos Cosmatos, the guy who directed Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to double check that before I laid claim to that, because that's a pretty crazy thing to have happened, that I inadvertently watched only Cosmatos movies this weekend, except for Kamillions.
So speaking of Kamillions, what were you able to find out about this movie, Elmer?
So it was written and directed by, credited by somebody named Mikkel Anderson, which was actually the directing and writing name for Michael B. Anderson, a member of the Caltech animation department. I can't remember what the numbers is, but it's like where a lot of the guys who later went on to be like the founding members.
Room 2319, right?
Yes. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. I always forget that number, even though it's just like, no, I should just remember Monsters Inc. like that. But I don't remember if he was directly a member of that original group or if he was like some of the one of the later classes that kind of came down that way. But he, just like a lot of the guys who were at, Disney, people who were over at Nickelodeon, developing shows like Dexter's Lab, Ren and Stimpy, stuff like that. He went on to actually work for The Simpsons, being one of their animation heads there. And on top of that, he kind of wrote and directed his own other little sci-fi, comedy, horror kind of mix-up movies. His other movie he did right before this is something... God, I can't remember the title of it. It's like something about a T-shirt. And it's just like, wait, what? It is... Shoot. But which is less important because originally the name of it when they distributed it in France was Sexy Lady, and it's about a nurse at a psychiatric hospital whose catatonic patient. She decides that the only way to get him out of his catatonic state is I need to have sex with him.
Of course.
Oh wow! So that movie is called Alone in the T-shirt Zone, but Sexy Lady seems like a more apt title.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Yep. Can you see why that one didn't come to mind quickly, and especially when I looked down and went, oh crap, I don't have it on my phone anymore. Well, that one's lost to history. But yeah, it just sounds like it was just sort of his own sort of, when
Oh
you're
my god! he was a consultant on Tripping the Rift. Do you remember that? It was like the first
Oh
adult
my God.
show.
Wow.
Oh man.
Wow. But then again, wasn't Brad Bird like thanked and like specifically thanked in the South Park movie or something like that, or the first episode of South Park? Like something weird like that says, and special thanks to Brad Bird for assisting in animation. But yeah, it just sounds like Michael Anderson here. He kind of developed like some of these weird ideas that he had. Oh, this might be fun for a film or whatnot. And so he sat down, wrote this with another friend of his from college who has not gone on to anything else. And then he talked to his friend Harry S. Robbins, who was a younger, or I shouldn't say younger, who was an actor, stand-up, theatrical actor, as well as writer, who plays the head, sort of like a scientist professor in this film, who's the patriarch of this family. It just so happens this actor later went on, not to jump the gun too much, but I think it'd be the perfect time to say this,
Yeah.
did the voice of almost all of the scientists in the first Half-Life game, and then they brought him back to do the voice of Dr. Kleiner specifically in Half-Life 2.
Yep.
Either take a drink or, man, I wish I had a nickel every single time he said a line in this that sounded like it was right out of the first Half-Life game.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Like I knew that you know, the movie kind of reminded me about the game when I first discovered the movie, but I never realized that it actually had real connections to the game. So,
And on top of that, it's got everything from parasitic aliens that kind of turn you into their slaves, so to speak, to, well, no joke, Robbins here actually says the line, resonance, other science word that's unconnected, cascade. And I just went, yeah, he said it.
yeah, also this movie, like, was it you that told us, or Thor that told us that it was originally like shot as a comedy, and then
the producers took one look at it and went, no, that's too slow paced. We gotta speed this up. And I read that one producer wanted to make it into a thriller, and then the other one was originally a editor for Japanese action movies and knew very little English, so then cut the movie around that as well. And apparently this is some sort of nightmare bastard cut.
Yeah, according to the Wikipedia on it, which I believe, the producer whose name her name was Wu. She edited it down from 2 hours to 90 minutes, basically like taking out anything that she didn't think was like action.
wow.
And I'm amazed the movie sort of holds up as well as it does, because it says that's the cut that we see.
Yeah, that's a quarter of the movie removed. You know?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh,
Yeah, and the director said that he still has all the original footage, which it must have been on tape, right? There's no way this movie was shot on film.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, like you can especially tell during the outdoor shots. So he says he still has all the original footage in his refrigerator, and he's waiting for someone to want him to make a director's cut.
That it needs to happen. It needs to happen. So like, what should we should kind of break down the timeline of this movie a little bit, right? Because we need to convince the people out there to watch this movie, because it is one of my new like guilty pleasures.
Yeah, I was amazed how well it holds up, because when I saw it was so low budget, I was like, oh man, this is going to be bad. This is going to be hard to sit through. But it's really low budget, but it's not bad. It's actually really clever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like it's about like this rich family who, like, the father of the family is like some scientist always working on the nuclear physics and stuff in his lab in the basement of their mansion,
Like you do.
and then the rest of the family just kind of being dumb teenagers or whatever. And the dad ends up like, what did he create? Like some sort of portal or something to another planet or another dimension or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And these little bug alien things like end up sucking the dad scientist in to the portal, and then entering our Earth, uh, and it's pretty funny because like the son is like obsessed with this like model, and like hangs a poster of this model in his closet, and he's always looking at the poster and talking about how hot she is, and these aliens are shapeshifters apparently. I think the best part is like the first like gotcha by the aliens in the movie was one of the guys is just like in the mirror like tidying up his shirt and whatever, and all of a sudden he goes, huh, and turns around, there's just a bug on his shoulder, a bug alien on his shoulder.
The lights change on him like something out of Creep Show with like these heavy like red, blue, and yellows. He's like, ah, and tear at this static bug that's just clipped to the back of his shirt. Ah!
Yeah, and the entire movie is filled with shots like that and special effects that are like really bad, but you could tell they were done just the best of what they could do, and it was done with love. So,
and you could tell that when it was originally shot, not when it was originally edited, or the music was overlaid with it, or how fast they sped it up or whatnot. You can tell that it was shot to be corny as hell and fun at the same time. You knew that they shot this so that way it felt like an old 1950s horror movie with, oh no, the killer, fiend without a face, the brain monsters are coming, so to speak. Compared to, like, say, John Carpenter's The Thing or The Blob or something from this time of, like, things jumping across rooms and stuff. Yeah. This is a little slower paced than that.
It was like an interesting spin on, like, the monster movie trope thing. And this is another thing that it relates to Half-Life with is these little alien guys. They're, like, basically head crabs. So, so Thor, in the Half-Life games, they're called head crabs. They're like little fleshy spiders, and they will jump on your head and then like mind control you and be able to puppet your body around and stuff like that. So, it's basically what happens in this movie.
Yeah.
It's minus the psychic powers.
The special effects are hokey, but I feel like the movie is cheesy, but I feel like it not leans into that. It. What's that?
It like leans into it a little bit, right?
Yeah, but it's also like sincere enough that I still cared about the characters, because that's a problem I have with like stuff that's intentionally cheesy or intentionally campy.
Yeah,
is that like that works for like a short, but then you have to like eventually start caring about the characters. So it almost kind of reminded me of like some of the tone of like Six String Samurai, where it has like super campy stuff, but then you'll like be like, oh, I actually like care about this conflict, and I want this person to succeed because they've actually drawn somewhat of a character in this.
Yeah, and that might be a positive outcome of all this editing done by the producer, because it kind of hit this weird like middle area where it like didn't really take itself seriously, but also wasn't like goofy like too much about it. Like there was obviously, like when the Reverend shows up at the door and he's just got this
halo
big,
behind him.
This big wide-eyed creepy smile and like a halo behind him. Like obviously that's a joke, right? But it's like they never draw attention to it. So it was kind of unique to see, but the more like the farther I got into the movie, the more I was appreciating it.
I guess the question is this technically body horror, if, slight spoiler alert, if the movie resets itself at the end of it? Is it truly body horror? Well, 90% of it gets reset by the end of it?
I mean, it's still body horror because the stuff still happened, even if even if it gets undone,
Okay. Yeah, I guess it still counts then.
Yeah, I mean, they shove a guy's entire body into a fishbowl.
I forgot about that. I love that. Like
that shot. The bubbles coming up.
A lot of the stuff in this movie was ridiculous. Okay. So I want us to all name like a favorite part of the movie, but I will go ahead and say the one that everyone's probably going to pick, the penis monster. So at one point in the movie, like one of the cousins is like, in bed with the pastor or whatever, and they start getting busy. And all of a sudden he has this growing bulge in his pants, and she's like, oh my, undoes his pants, and it's just a giant like dragon penis monster that starts like attacking him, and it is. You gotta love a good penis monster scene, but it was, man, I was cackling for quite a while at that, and it ends up killing him. But yeah, that's definitely a highlight of this movie.
And then Thor, I believe it was your favorite shot of that entire moment when his hand that was holding onto it just goes limp and falls onto the bed, and his palm outstretches, and he's holding a condom in it at the same time. Oh.
Hey, it's important to emphasize safe sex. You gotta get a condom over your giant dragon penis.
Oh well, it's funny because he was he mentioned like he complained about the pastor. He complained about liberals, and he mentioned like Dianetics multiple times.
No. He called it, what was it, diegetics?
Oh, yep. Diegetics, yeah.
Which I'm assuming if this movie was more well known, it would have been sued into oblivion by Scientology.
Oh, yeah, probably.
This might be the reason why it's not on DVD, actually.
Well, they also add a little detail in there where before he was like a priest, he was a pimp.
Yes! Oh my god. And they don't go into detail about how the aunt knew him, but it seems like she was not up to any good.
Right?
No, not shaming sex work. Sex work is work, but it was definitely funny that she was just like, you.
Yeah, that was great. So he was definitely one of my favorite characters, and that was my favorite scene, I think. Who wants to go next? What was your favorite Thor?
So, weirdly enough, Fishbowl would be an obvious choice, but I have to go with, because I didn't expect the movie to be so goopy yet, was when the Count, which first of all, this movie has a Count in it, like a Count from Lincoln. Oh, yeah. When the Count gets possessed, and then he's trying to seduce the maid, and he takes off his jacket, and instead of having an undershirt, he just has oozing flesh.
Yeah, just gross, slimy abs.
Yeah.
And then the reverse shot they did, so that way when he puts his shirt back on, they just did a reverse shot of him tearing the shirt through the buttons. They reversed it, so he just goes shriek, and he puts his hands there, just like.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, what about you, Elmer?
I'd say seeing the gal who Thor and I were just obsessed with, who plays the sister in it, who's just annoying and preachy, and I realized I'm like, oh god, she's like if Ricky Lake played Lydia in the Beetlejuice is what she is.
Yes. When
the Count, who gets possessed and taken over body snatcher style by this alien, he makes her deep throat a phone, and she's running around for about 2 minutes with just part of a big 1980s handset receiver for a phone, stuck coming out of the corner or coming out of her mouth. And it's just open your mouth wider and pull the rest of it out. What are you doing?
Yeah, that was hilarious. This movie had a lot of good scenes like that.
She does have to go to the hospital, and then for some reason they put her in a neck brace, which she wears for exactly 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Before she rips it off and just starts screaming at her mom.
Yeah. Oh, and man, I love the mom, the oblivious mom. That could have been annoying that the mom just keeps being like, oh, the Count wouldn't do that. Everything's great. And the Count throws a knife at her, and she's like, oh, thank you. I needed a knife.
Yeah. Yeah, she's completely oblivious the whole time, and she's the only one that doesn't get fucked with.
Yes.
Which, speaking of the cousin that was in bed with the pastor, I have to mention, her scene was. She slaps the Count, who's possessed by one of these aliens, and so he gets mad and turns her into a spider with her human face, but she's tiny, and the mom ends up spraying her with bug spray and she dies or whatever. But that the little costume that they did for her to wear to do that scene, God, it was a masterpiece.
They just cut a hole in the floor, in a table, and just had her stick her head through, and they had this really crappy foam spider body on top. And for some strange reason, the way they shot it is they shot it so it was on its back every single time, going like that. You guys could have thought a better way to do that.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
it
if that was
hilarious.
like easier to control because the little spider arms moved.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was awesome. And then, yeah, and so then the movie does have a little bit of a twist. So, I don't know if we mentioned that. So, two aliens came into the world. One possessed like the Count, so this guy, and he was the one going around killing everyone. And one took the form of the model in this kid's closet poster or whatever. So, the model's going around trying to stop the guy from killing everyone or whatever. And a little bit of a twist, you find out that the alien that possessed this guy is only 10 years old, so it's a child, and she's the babysitter that watches him once a week. So it's just like a neat, like nonsensical little twist in there that was really really kind of neat.
And I just realized, is this movie actually rated anything?
I would imagine it would have to be rated R.
I mean, I don't remember any heavy usage of, swear or of cuss words.
It's got a penis monster.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, it doesn't look that phallic, though. I mean, I've seen other things where there was giant monster things coming out of people's chests. I mean, they made alien jokes on, like, Rugrats and stuff like that, and were able to get away with it. I mean, that's pretty phallic.
I'm looking on IMDb, and I actually don't see a rating.
If it turned out to be PG, I would laugh so very, very hard.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't have a rating. I can't.
I mean, it might just be unrated, but how funny would it be if they actually tried to make this for general audiences? Because it is quite tame if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I typed in Kamillions MPAA rating and nothing came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have not been submitted to the MPAA. Like you have to spend money. You have to
Maybe
spend money to submit things.
Yeah,
to the
they
MPAA.
didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's
Actually,
see.
in the British, there's controversy in England because movies, like here you just release stuff unrated, like Hatchet, but in England things get outright banned from England because the rating system is the government.
Video nasties.
Exactly, yeah, but still to this day. So in protest to that, someone did a Kickstarter of I think they got enough to send 10 hours of footage of paint drying to the British form. And they had to watch all 10 hours.
That's awesome. Oh man. So
Just kind of a waste of everybody's time, but I'm glad somebody did it.
yeah, I mean
I still splice in one 2-second clip of full on porn in there just so they're like, oh, I saw it for about a second.
I'm still angsty enough at 30 to appreciate that. So
Exactly, yeah.
but yeah, so how does this movie end? They end up the babysitter alien ends up finding the guy and talks to him and talks him down from killing somebody, and they end up returning to their portal, and everything literally just turns back to normal, except for the cousin that got turned into a bug never changes back.
It's
You
great.
get stuck in the radiator.
Stuck as a
So
bug
satisfying.
forever, but everyone else that died comes back to life like nothing happened.
I mean, even
Yeah,
the
and then-
dad who got bent over backwards into a tiny little hole, he comes through just looking like Janusz at the end of Ghostbusters too. If I am
Yeah,
a
and that's-
school.
This is the dad who is the voice of the scientists in Half-Life, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So he's basically just in the beginning and the end of the movie. To quote the podcast, The Flophouse, he's kind of like the millionaire who comes and asks the Three Stooges to clean up his house for him.
Oh, we should mention that all of a sudden they were like, oh no, my thermal reactor's about to go off. We're all gonna die!
Oh yeah, so speaking of thermal reactors going off, at the beginning of the movie when the scientist is kind of explaining his contraption to the kid, they're talking about, well, if the cooling goes out, it's going to have a 600 megaton blast radius. And my only thought is megatons is a measurement of power, not distance. So it was kind of like the sciencey parts of it were just saying science words, and
Yeah.
I also appreciated that.
This was a bit of a it can
Parsecs?
do the do the kettle run in 12 parsecs.
Uh,
I immediately wanted to say, what's the conversion of that for dollops per hour? 600 megatons.
yeah, it's like it's like saying I'm gonna go down to the store. It's only 20 liters away. But anyway, I guess we can do bops or flops for the movie now. So we're gonna go around and say whether it's a bop or a flop or both, and why. We'll start with Elmer. Bop or flop for you?
Oh, bop and a half. Holy crap, I am so happy I saw this. People who are actually watching this stream or actually have access to, whenever we're able to post it, the different posters we're able to find for these movies and video games we do, I want you people to take this. I want you to take just that lovely image in there, because while without context, that poster says nothing. If you've seen this movie, this poster speaks volumes and tells the entire story of what you have laying ahead of you. It's masterful.
Well, no, the poster doesn't say nothing if you haven't seen the movie. The poster says somebody saw Reanimator, because they basically just have a Reanimator in the corner.
Yeah, that too. Hey, remember all these other movies you really like that look kind of like this? Oh, you're totally going to like this.
Yeah. So how about you, Thor? Was this a bop or a flop?
I was so pleasantly surprised by this movie, especially the first scene where we've got this, like, scientist in the lab, and I was like, oh man, I know what kind of movie this is going to be. And then his wife comes and, like, is yelling at him that he's got to, like, clean up for his birthday party, and I was like, okay, I don't know what kind of movie this is going to be. And every scene of this movie is a surprise, because the tone keeps shifting wildly, but I really was along for the ride. I mean, you got to go in being okay with a really low budget movie, and like you said, a lot of it's very campy, but as I said, just enough of it's sincere that I love the twist. I think it's so fun that it's just a 10-year-old that, like, doesn't know right from wrong,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It was a bop for me too, like bops all around. I think I said earlier, this is definitely going to be like a new guilty pleasure of mine.
Yeah.
I loved every second of this movie. I kind of researched it a little bit before I suggested to these guys that we should watch it. But even I wasn't expecting it to be good at all. I was thinking, okay, we're gonna watch some low budget schlock and have something to make fun of. But this is kind of like a hidden gem. This is great.
Yeah.
The best way to describe it, it feels like if Troma or like Full Moon, if they would have attempted to do Terror Vision back in the day instead of New World, is the best way of how I look at this movie.
Yeah, and I guess we didn't mention this movie. If you want to watch it, can pretty much only be found on YouTube. So find it on YouTube. It's free.
It even has the FBI warning in front of it, which is ironic.
Yeah, but Thor mentioned he might be heading to eat dinner at this time. Unless you want to stick around, are you going to head out, Thor?
No, I'll listen to the whole episode, but I don't think I'll have much to contribute, so it'll be silly to just have me in the corner being like,
Sure, no, that's fine. So we'll kind of tie this into Half-Life now. And I know both Elmer and I have played a good amount of Half-Life, but he might have actually played more than I did. Thor left. Yeah, it's a game I played a lot at, like, friends' houses and stuff when I was a kid, and more so Half-Life 2, because I wasn't really a PC gamer in 1998, which is when the first one came out. But and then I was never really an Xbox guy. But when I would go over to my friends' houses, I did play Half-Life 2 a lot. So this game is definitely loved a lot. And Half-Life was Valve's actually debut product, so it was like their first project. It came out in 1998, and it was actually published by Sierra, which isn't it's a name I haven't heard in a very long time.
Not since I last booted up my copy of SWAT 3 have I even thought of Sierra Online.
Yeah, so published by Sierra, and Gabe Newell actually said that the team was disappointed with the lack of innovation in the FPS genre, So he was aiming to create an immersive world rather than a shooting gallery, and they actually ended up making the game on a very heavily modded Quake engine. They even licensed it from id Software and everything. So they they kind of went about this really weird. It's a horror FPS game inspired by Doom, inspired by Quake, Stephen King's The Mist, and an episode of The Outer Limits from the 60s. It's an old TV show. The level design was even inspired by the anime Akira.
I can actually kind of picture that,
Yeah.
a lot of that, actually, in terms of the actual, Akira chamber. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the Alien series was another influence, but like with all these influences, how could you go wrong?
Dead Space 4.
Right, but the problem was this was 1998. So a lot of people thought that the game was too ambitious for a first-person shooter, and Valve was having actually a hard time finding a publisher. Luckily, around that time, Sierra was looking into publishing a 3D game, so they made a deal with Valve. So Valve finally got funding. They were able to show off the AI for the game at E3 in 1997, and it created a lot of hype because the AI could behave in fear, and it's like stuff like that, which was pretty new in 1997. So there was a lot of buzz around it, and they actually wanted to do a release in late 1997 to compete with Quake 2. But it just didn't get ready in time, unfortunately. So they ended up doing something kind of really intense, but it worked out really well for them. They postponed the game and reworked every single level. They would have a small team come up with the concept level, basic layout, and items and whatnot. And then they would send that to a larger team that would spend a month fleshing out each level, one at a time. They even set like guidelines and rules for what each level would need to be considered fun. So first, it had to have several interesting things happen, all triggered by the player rather than a timer, so that it would feel like you're setting the pace for the level. Second, the wall textures had to show, like the level had to respond to your player's actions. So like even if it's like a wall showing your bullet marks when you shoot into it, having that sort of little detail be a permanence thing was pretty ambitious in 1997. And then finally, the level would warn the player of imminent danger and allow them to avoid it rather than just coming out of nowhere and killing the player. Which is really great guidelines to have in place, right? I mean, this game is 25 years old soon, and we still don't get games that do that to this day.
They still have it where you just walk into the room and you can get stuck in a permadeath cycle without, just either due to glitches or either due to glitches or just because, bad AI programming or something like that. But yeah, no, I mean, to this day, even if there is a glitch or something like that, there's always still a way out or a way around, like a certain permadeath moment or something like that.
Yeah, so this was pretty innovative for 1997. So in order to get this process rolling like a well-oiled machine, they actually had to create something they called the Cabal, which was a team of about 6 people. They were all extremely experienced, like people from each department in Valve, that had basically the responsibility for every part of the design process. So including the level layouts, key events, enemy designs, the narrative, introduction of gameplay elements, and everything. So they had this like main group that they would basically like the deciding factor, but then they'd have like mini cabals in each department to make sure that the ideas all get implemented correctly. So like they had this really weird like hierarchy thing, but it worked out. So The Cabal would produce a 200-page design document detailing every single aspect of the game. Then they produced a 30-page document just about the narrative, and then they hired a science fiction novelist named Mark Laidlaw to manage the script and add old storytelling tricks to make it interesting. And 2 months after implementing these cabals, they had a playable test version of the game.
2 months.
2 months. So it really worked. It worked so well that they did the same exact thing for Team Fortress 2.
And it just took them, 15 years to finally get that game running?
Yeah, so like it was kind of like a cool success story for Valve, because I mean, this being their first project, if this flopped, who knows what Steam would be as we know it, right?
GameSpy, the GameSpy network.
Yeah, the GameSpy arcade. But unfortunately, it was kind of hard to find too much about the development of Half-Life, because a lot of the details of the development were lost. According to a Valve employee named Eric Johnson, 2 or 3 months before the release of the game, their visual source safe, which is their control system, basically their server, it exploded, and all the logs of technical changes to the game and stuff were lost. Just the logs, though, luckily. And code had to be recovered from individual computers instead of the server. So we ended up losing a lot of little details, but luckily it didn't ruin too much.
And fortunately, somebody, in their infinite wisdom, decided that they better do a screenshot of the original Gordon Freeman design, so this day we can bask in the glow of Yuri, the space biker.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, Half-Life, it ended up making a big impact in PC gaming. It won over 50 PC Game of the Year awards. And the cool thing about this was Valve is really supportive about independent developers and the mod scene. So they actually released with the game their level creation tools and stuff like that, so people could just make whatever they wanted with it. And it's still getting modded to this day. So like we have, I think it's called Black Mesa. It's an HD remake of the first Half-Life game, and it requires you to have the original game purchased in order to play it. But yeah, it's really cool. So check that out if you haven't played the first one. That's definitely the way to experience it. And so Valve themselves even modded Half-Life. That's where Counter-Strike came from. It's just a mod of Half-Life. So I mean, yeah, this game really kind of made some good waves in the gaming space, and I definitely recommend playing it.
It is definitely a lot of fun, and if anything, it further cemented just the great melee role a crowbar can actually come in handy with in a game.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think this was a lot of fun. I'm kind of having the urge to go play some Half-Life again, but
All I can say is the first 20 minutes of that game is such a slog. The only really part that, in my opinion, other than just kind of immersing you in the world, is running through and finding all the little Easter eggs. Like, you can blow up someone's burrito in the microwave. You can knock over, I think, a couple of coffee cups at one point, and then you can lock people in rooms and closets and such. Which I don't remember if they are able to come back later in the game or not, but I just remember doing that all the time as a kid. But I love Half-Life. It's a modern masterpiece, and between it and the original Blue Shift and what's the other not DLC? What do you call it? Expansion pack they did, where it's you're playing as the opposing force. Or is it opposing shift?
Yeah.
Opposing force,
something
yes.
like that.
Yeah, one of the best from that era, just, best expansion packs where it's practically an entire another game just set in a different part of the facility, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. But, I think we'll get ready to. We'll end the episode here pretty soon.
We'll save the talk for Half-Life 2 when we finally do the Hardcore Henry episode later.
That might be good. Yeah, we'll have to try to find something to talk about Half-Life 2 with, because that's another good one. But yeah, if you want to see more or hear more of Thor, again, his podcast is called Thor's Hour of Thunder. You can find it on everywhere you can find us. If you want to find us, we should have a link in any description here, but gamelink.click. That's where you can find our YouTube videos, our Twitch stream, and all that sort of thing. So with that being said, thanks for listening, and we'll find something entertaining for y'all next week.
Alrighty, you have yourself a good week, guys. Stay safe, stay sexy, and keep being spooky out there.
All right. Bye, guys.